Alright, here we are again. We're 1938 D18. This is the one I put the bridge on, and I did a video on using hide glue, put the bridge on this one. This is the one that's got the graduated bridge that I partially made. And we are going to do two things today on this. We're gonna finish the holes in the bridge, and we're going to cut the saddle slot. Now, the tricky thing about the saddle slot is that, to the best of my knowledge, these 38s and early 30s did not have a 3/32 of an inch saddle slot. So that's 0.94. They had a 0.82 saddle slot. Well, I don't have a 0.82 route bit, so we got to do something here. So what I do have is a 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. It's 1/16 of an inch, which is 0.6125. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a STU-MAC jig here, and we're going to slot one, and then we're going to scoot it over 20,000ths of an inch, and we're going to slot the rest of the slot. And I've been practicing this. It'd be really, really easy to just cut a 0.93 slot and just cut it done, because I have a router bit that cuts a beautiful 0.92 inch slot in one pass, you know. What we're going to have to do is multiple passes on this thing, and the trouble is when you do multiple passes and you adjust your router, the router will move, and so now all of a sudden, you know, the bit's at a different place. I do not like. This is the Bosch Colt. I do not like the Bosch Colt. This is the one that STU-MAC sells, and I'm not sure if I got it from them or not. I get a discount from them, so I get some things from them. I'm not sure if I have this. The one that I use at the other shop is a rigid, and the rigid I've been using for a long time. It does not shift when you adjust it. So what I'm saying here is that when you take this Colt and you loosen this clamp here, this shifts in here. It'll shift inside this. And it's not a lot, but if you look at this bit, you can see it shifting. So you open it up and you come over here and you crank it in a couple thousandths more, because you decide to make a second pass or whatnot. You know, you need it just a little bit deeper. And then when you shut this thing here, the router sometimes will be in a very, very slightly different place, like that. And you end up with a stepped saddle slot, and it's a real pain in the butt. I know people recommend cutting the saddle slots in thin steps. And if you do that, if I do that, maybe you've got a workaround around it. If I do that with that Bosch, it's going to end up with a stepped saddle slot, and it's not repeatable. I can't say for sure that the rigid doesn't do the same thing, because honestly, man, I set that 3/32 and I go one time, and I get the saddle slot the first time, and it's a rare deal if I look back at it and go, gosh, I need just a little bit deeper. I would really take a lot of time to make sure I've got that depth where I want it, and cut that on the first shot, one shot straight through, bring it back again. As long as you don't loosen that adjustment, you can go back and forth as much as you want, and it's good. It's not going to step or anything. But I think we'll be okay, because what I need to do is be real careful to take this 1/16, get it to the depth I want, cut through, and then use the jig and move the jig over 20,000ths of an inch. And we'll get to that when we get to it, and I've been practicing. There's a way to do it fairly accurately. And I will not adjust the depth at all, and I will move it over 20,000ths of an inch and cut the second slot. And with any kind of luck, we will end up with a nice 0.82 saddle slot. The way they used to do this, of course, in the day, John Arnold has a really good video. Somebody filmed it of him, long video. And the way he does it is with a table saw. And so he's got the blanks flat, and he runs them through the table saw and cuts the angle. And you can get a table saw blade that's the right thickness. And you can also adjust that a little bit easier than you can a router. And so there's advantage to that. But I don't have that advantage. I'm working with a formed, shaped bridge, and I can't run this through the table saw. You know. And so I can do this with the router, but it takes a lot of checking, a lot of precision, and a lot of thinking about the problem. So let's get on with the pinholes. And I need the pinholes in here because I got to do them eventually, so I might as well do them now. Because I want to be able to put the saddle height in here that I want, and I want to be able to string this up, and then I want to get a good, accurate need for the neck set that I know it's going to need. I guarantee it needs an echo set because it needed an echo set before I even replaced the shaved bridge. So if you run this straight edge right now down the neck, it hits halfway down that bridge, you know. Let me get a hold of this thing. I have a wooden one, that's easier to hold up and show you, this thin metal. So there you go. And there's my new camera auto-focusing close-up. So it hits way down there. It needs to clear this bridge by about that much. It needs to clear that bridge by, 100,000th of an inch or so. So this thing needs a bad neck reset. The other one, the other 1938, I only needed about 20,000ths of an inch. Very, very mild neck reset. This one needs a full-blown, I bet this neck's never been off. I don't see any marks up here. Alright, so I want to get the full height saddle in there and everything so I can get a real good, accurate neck reset on this thing. Okay, so I've got these tiny little holes in here that are actually 3/32 of an inch, I think they are. Here's a 3/32. I think that's what I drilled them with. Yeah, that's what I drilled them with over at the other place. But then I had that little bitty brad point, and I drilled these through, and I have not gone through yet. Yeah, I can see through here. But what I need to do eventually is get this in there. And this is not this is just a rough shaping, what's the name of this thing? There you go. Here's the good one, okay? Here's the good one. This one has a half fluted side, so it will be smooth when I twist it. But this one's really good for getting that hole cut pretty fast. And I'm going to chuck this up in the drill, and we're going to go down there. We're going to ream it. We're going to ream it out. But before I can get there, I've got to get this hole big enough to get the reamer in there. I'm not sure it's quite big enough. It might actually go in this, it might. I mean, it's almost, I probably could just ream it straight through here right now. Yeah. But we're going to go one more drill bit up. We're going to go one drill bit. This one, whatever this is, 5/32. So this one's just a little bit bigger. Drill it in there. It's going to give this reamer just a little bit more to work with, so I keep it straight. The reamer cuts really good, and so if you don't have a nice hole for it to go down into and guide, it's easy to wobble the thing. So, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do on this is countersink the holes a little bit. And I just use a countersink here. It's no big deal. I use my fingers because it's quick and easy to just spin it back and forth like this. And the reason for the countersink, twofold. Number one, this drill bit will fit in here really nice, so it'll fall into that cup very naturally, and it also won't rip up the sides of the hole. So if I just take this drill bit and go straight into this hole right now without countersinking it, it'll rip the edges up a little bit. That happens once in a while, and I don't want it to happen on this bridge, so we're being very careful. As I've said before, I have basically two modes of working. I have 70s, where I'm working on the 70s of mine, and it's my bridge and my everything, and I can do whatever I want on it. And then I have this vintage pre-war mode where I'm 15 times more careful. It takes 4 to 6 times as long to do this for me. I see why people charge so much now. I was talking to Jim Baggett once years and years ago. And he said he does an equity set on a pre-war, costs $1,000, takes a year. And I said, holy cow, man. He said, hey, I don't want to add that much stress to my life for a couple $100. And at the time, I thought, gosh, that's a lot of money. Now I think, I'm not sure he's charging it now. Now I understand a lot more about it. And back in the day when I used to work on pre-wars a lot more, in the early 2000s, they still weren't worth as much as this. I had several customers just send me a whole bevy of pre-war D18s, and they wanted me to look at them and check them out and things like that. And, you know, I was just fearless on them. Removed bridge plates, somebody else's bridge plate that they'd added in there. Did neck resets on them, frets, you know, just fearless. And then the price started going up on them, and all of a sudden they weren't $10,000 guitars anymore, they were $60,000. And people started getting really picky about them. And then it just became, well, it's just too much work for me and I don't want the responsibility. So I backed off of them a little bit. So, alright, so I've got these drilled in here. And remember, these are graduated holes, and we're going to try to preserve that, but we're going to do the best we can do on this. You know, in other words, if the holes end up being 2/1000 of an inch less or more graduated, I'm not going to worry about it because, number one, it's so hard to measure that at this point. Number two, you just got to do what you got to do. I cannot put this guitar into a drill press or a milling machine and do this. That's just scary, actually. You got a lot of potential problems. You think, oh, it would be do this, you know, and you never think about the potential problems that you might create by doing that. So I'm just going to do this the way I've always done it. I use a drill with a soft hand, meaning I let that drill bit go down into where it wants to go on there. So, and the holes are already in the bridge plate, so I don't have to worry about a backing plate or anything like that. We're going through holes that are already in the bridge plate, and I can actually see them through here, which is good. So here we go. So I'm going to put a sandbag on here to hold it down. Sandbag, I have another sandbag. Where's my other sandbag? Right there. Put a little weight on this body just so it doesn't flip up in the air or anything. And here we go. So we're going to drill this. This is a what I say it was? 5 30-seconds. These are nice and countersunk. Man, if you could just take the ball ends and thread them up through here, you'd be done. But no, gotta have pins. So try to hold that steady and then just go through. There it goes. It wanted to chip right there. Stop. Okay, that wanted to chip immediately. So we need to countersink that a little bit bigger and go with the smaller drill bit again. It's not a problem because I know the hole is going to be that big, and we're gonna cover that. But as soon as you started doing that, that's what I wanted it to not do. We're going to fix that chip up real quick before I move. This is the thin, yeah. This is not a pre-war bridge either. This is a replica, so, you know, I got a little bit of leeway here. Not the end of the world. Glue that down. Got to countersink that a little bit bigger. We'll go with a thinner drill bit too. About 30 seconds, a little bit too big, I guess. Yeah, that looks, we can go bigger than that though. What's this one? 1/8. That looks good. The reamer doesn't do this. This isn't Dan's using the reamer all the way. As soon as I get a little bit of a hole, I'm going to use the reamer. So we're going to let that dry. I'm going to come over to this side and get that going. There we go. That looks good. That looks good. It's hard wood. I mean, man, it doesn't want to go. By the way, I'm using the grain lines on the top to get my drill bit this way, so I can see that grain line, and I'm using that grain line as a gauge. And then the other way, this way, pointing backwards, I've done that enough times to kind of get a good feel for it. So, and you can always get a level out, a square, and check yourself here, but. We're going to have a little opportunity when we ream it to correct any slight forwards and backwards things. And the way I'll do that is to put pins in the top as I go. So I'll put the first one in and I'll look at it, make sure, before I get it all the way, I'll make sure it's this way, and I can ream it up just a little bit and correct it. So you've got some correction going in here. That wood's hard. Let's see how we're doing on that little chip. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to get my countersink, fresh sink that again. Yeah, looks pretty good. And it's a smaller drill bit this time, so. Okay, looks nice. By the way, before I started this, when I first put this bridge on, I put a mirror inside and I looked at the holes to see how they lined up with the bridge pin, with the holes in the bridge plate. And my holes were just like as dead center as I could possibly see. So I know everything is lined up good in there. So make sure you do that if you ever do this yourself, is make sure everything is lined up and everything. So, okay. I've got a good hole in there. I think I've got enough where the tip of this reamer is sitting in there pretty good. And so now we're going to ream into it. This is a place where it's good to have a square handy. You can just use something like this. Set it up there. And I'm going to look at the edge of this ruler as my square. And again, I can use it this way too. Looks good, it's lined up with the grain. So you're going to put this in here like this. And you eyeball it that way. And you got it, And again, it's going to go down easy and soft. I have done this so many times, I know how far to go, roughly. So, but I am going to stop, and get me some bridge pins. Here they are, here's some black bridge pins. I need some white bridge pins. Let me grab the thing. The reason, I'll show you why. white bridge pins, white plastic. The white's easier to see against the ebony bridge, and I also like to use pins that don't belong on the guitar so I can remember that these are not the pins that I'm going to use. So I got it in here, and I got this pin sitting part way, you know. Then you can come down here and eyeball it with this square edge right here and take a look at it, and I like it, you know. I like the way it looks. And looking this way, it's going in the grain, so this one's going in nice and straight. This is going to be my guide. So we're going to go just a little bit more. Almost. Now, I'm going to leave it proud just a little bit so I can use the hand reamer for that final setup, and that will smooth out the hole. So in other words, this is, like I said, a cheap reamer. It's non-fluted. It's just cutting all the way around, which makes it cut very fast, so it's great for this. This would take you all day if you did it by hand. You'd be sitting there all day long. But I'm going to save this for the last step, and then I'm going to correct that forward just a little bit, and this will smooth out the hole. Right now, if you look at the hole, it's not too bad because it's ebony, but I think this is leaning backwards just a tiny bit because the collar of the pin, let's bring the camera down here and I'll show you. Check the close-up abilities of this camera, because this is why I have it. That's pretty nice. Okay, you see how that collar got a little bit more room up in here than it does in the back. So this pin needs to lean forward just a little bit. So when I go to using that hand reamer now, that's what I will do. I will reach up there with the hand reamer and angle that forward just a little bit. I've got plenty of time to do it, plenty of room, no danger. Okay, let's get my camera set back up again. Okay, we're back. I had to reset the color thing, and I think I did. What I did is touch it with my thumb. It's a touch screen. When I was flipping the screen back and forth, I probably held that down because we're looking good again. Okay, moving across here. I know that I got the first one back just a little bit leaning. You know, I know it's going in the hole, but I'm leaning backwards just a little bit. So this time I'm going to make sure I lean forward just a hair. Make that one come up just straight. And we'll get them straightened out before we're done. Don't worry. Don't panic. Yeah, it's looking good. Looking good. I should note that if you're going to make a mistake on the pins, it's better to have it leaning back just a little bit because it'll pin the ball in better. Mario Pru does this intentionally. He sets his bridge pins back at a little bit of an angle like this so that it pins the string in a slightly different way than if it's leaning forward and the head of this is rubbing on the string. It's not as good. Okay, that one looked great. Yeah, that collar was like perfectly even on top of that bridge, so that one was good. So I need to lean forward just a hair from what I think I'm going to do. Here we go. I'm going to give you the whole process here. I know it's a little bit boring and repetitious, but I think it's important to see how much work this is, how much detail this is. You can always use the chapters and skip ahead, you know. When guys skip ahead on their videos, it's like, I wonder how they dealt with problems. You know, they hide their problems a lot, whereas I'm honest about it, I tell you. A lot of guys would have hid that little chip right there. instead of showing you how to deal with it. Beautiful. Man, that one fit great. That one fit great. Pop right down on that thing. And you might critique the eyeballing of this, but like I've always said, you know, if it looks good, then it is good, and you're going for the looks here. You're going for making this thing look right and look symmetrical. And if you've got a good eye for symmetry and squareness and all that, you can trust your eye. You can trust your eye, you can trust your fingers, you can trust your hands. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to trust your hands and trust your eyeballs. Looking good. Looking good. Yeah, I'm lining up really nice across the top. You can see the graduation. Standing here looking at this thing with the white pins and the black dots really popping against this ebony bridge, and I'm like, wow, I'm drilling a lot closer to this hole than I did over here. There's a lot more space between the A and the E than there is even now. It is a 40,000th of an inch difference, so you know, that's a whole, it's between an A and a D string. So if you can see your D string, you ought to be able to see 40,000ths of an inch difference. Nice. Yeah, yeah, I can see it. Okay, this one. Gotta watch that little chip doesn't come out of there, but it's looking good. I'm gonna eat away about 3/4 of that chip, maybe even more than that by the time I get done. Alright. Well, I got lucky and I finished them with these. I finished most of them with that. I got two to seat. Now take a look at this. Yeah, I want that low E to go forward just a hair. So I'm going to use my hand reamer here. And I'm going to bring that in, and I'm just going to put a little forward pressure on it. Not much. It's not off by very much. And this is a semi-fluted, so you only get half the cutting surface, but it will smooth the hole, which is what you want to do. This ebony is so hard that didn't chatter very much. Okay. Looks pretty good. Looks good. I've seen worse on new guitars. I'll bring the camera over and we'll look at it up close. Let's go over the top. Let's see if you can see that graduation. Look at the distance between here and look at the distance between here. And you got the dots to use as a kind of a gauge, you know. These pins really help you see that. Even though this dot's bigger than this dot, you still have dots. And you can kind of use that as a scale. So that's pretty cool. You know, I would have never done that if John Arnold wouldn't have said something and had me check to see if they were graduated. Sure enough, you know. Alright. There's the pinholes. Now, if you notice when you're over here looking at this, you saw 2 holes in the bridge. That's the point where I need to cut the saddle slot. Now, normally what I would do is I would take the .093, and I would bisect this hole perfectly so that the bit was centered over the hole. But because we got to make 2 sweeps on this, we need to think about where we're going to put the router bit. And so since it's going to be 61 the first time and then another 20, I need to figure that out for sure, because you can't bisect it. And I think the 60, the first swipe will go right on the edge of the hole, and the 20 will go on the rest of the hole. So instead of using the router bit to bisect the hole, I think the first cut is going to tangent the hole. The first cut is going to wipe out the hole in entirety, but it's not going to go over the hole. So if this is the hole and this is your router bit, let's make it smaller than this. What's going to happen is it's not going to go over the center of it, but it's going to go over here on this side. So the first pass will just obliterate the hole, but you might see just like a tiny half moon of it left. And then the second swipe, which is 20 thousandths, is going to go wipe that off. I think that's going to be right, but I'm going to double check on this again. And so, you know, which way can I err? This is your measuring twice business. So if I need to see where my marks are here as to where I should cut. Should I cut on this side of the line, that side of the line, or do I cut on the line? This is your measuring twice. This is actually your measuring 15 times business. Because this is it for this bridge. If I ruin this, whole thing's done. Then I'll probably fill the slot. So I don't want that slot. Yeah. I want to obliterate the back side of this slot of the hole. And over here, getting really close to the front edge of that bridge, and I want to obliterate the front side of this hole. So I want to do the back side of this hole. No, I should do the front side of both of them. Front side of both of them will do it. So I want that router bit to obliterate the front side of the hole. The next cut's going to go behind it. Our first cut will go up front, the second cut will go back behind. So, nice way to do this, trick from Frank Ford, is you take a piece of tape and you put it on here. Now, I want to obliterate the front side of the hole, so I'm going to make sure I put this up here. And I'm going to put the edge of the router bit right on that piece of tape. Get that right on it. This piece of tape makes it really easy to see where the router bit's going. I used to draw a pencil line, and it was really hard to see. And then somebody mentioned Frank Ford using the tape, and I thought, duh. You know, one of those things where it's just, that tape is so much easier to see than a stupid pencil line. And so that's what's going to happen now. The front edge of my cut is going to just touch the tape. The second cut is going to be back behind that. So first cut, second cut. Okay? Now, this is the sumac jig. Over on this side, the base side of this, I'll have a piece of plexiglass underneath here. And what this does is raises this table up at an angle. And that's important in order to cut the saddle slot correctly, because if you cut the slot level with the base, you're going to cut too far on the base side of the bridge, and you will end up with a slot that's too long on the base side. So you need to angle your table so that you touch the shoulders of this bridge at the same time. So let me get your bridge and I'll show you. Here's a bridge and here's the shoulders. You need to have your table set, and I will change this angle if I need to, so that the router bit just kisses the very top of this, and at the same time when you move it across to the other side, it needs to just kiss the top of this shoulder, and then you lower the depth to where you want it, which should be just a tiny bit into this shoulder, and you cut straight across, and that way you've angled your router table to match the bridge, and that is crucial for getting a good vintage saddle shop. The way John Arnold does it, is he cuts that before he does any shaping, and then he cuts the wings on the treble side in just a little further, and that levels everything out. So that's a little trick that you need to know about these vintage bridges, is that the treble side is actually in just a little bit further than the base side. They're not perfectly even. So, and this one is too. It's in just a little bit more. But I'm going to do this correctly. I sent John a picture of it one time, and I said, "Hey, how's this look?" And he said, "Well, it looks about perfect." So, yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. Okay, this has got the 3/32 of an inch. I need to switch this out. I'll pause the camera, and I'm going to switch out the router bits and set this all up, and then we'll come back. Okay. Here we go. Took a lot of setup, man. I had to add a whole stack of shims under this side. I mean, I kicked it up dramatically. The reason you have to do that is because the base side of the saddle is higher than the treble. And on these pre-wars, it's exaggerated a little bit. Like when I do a 70s, it's not that high. It's much more even. And that's the reason that you see on the vintage stuff where the treble saddle is exposed so much more. If you're going to do this again, if you're going to build your own guitar, you probably would not build with so much of a difference. I added only 20 thousandths of an inch from the treble to the bass side. It's more like about 30 or 40 right now. So what's going to happen is there's going to be more treble side exposed than bass side. You got to be careful of that, because if you set 125 or 130 inches of saddle sticking up, you're going to end up with about 160 or 70 over on the treble side, which is too tall. So I have a video on that, doing a tricky neck reset where I had to balance out the saddle business. Perfect example of it here, where I had to add. Man, I've got like 60 thousandths. Well, I have 60 thousandths of an inch shims under there in order to really get this thing balanced out where I want it to be. So right now, I have it set to where the router bit is just kissing where I want it to be. It's running along the tape. Everything looks good. And we're just about ready to route. I'm just taking one last check to make sure these screws are tight. Make sure this is tight and sitting there. It's not going to move. This is not going to move. Everything's nice and snug and solid as it can be. Your router will always move just a little bit in this slot. So push it to one side or the other consistently and stay there. I'm not plugged in yet. I'm going to take my light and I'm going to make one last check of this thing. I still like the light here. And it's hitting right there. The leading edge is right on the tape. And we're hitting right there. And the leading edge is right on the tape. I double checked. I had to switch bits. And when I did, I broke my 3/32 inch bit because maybe it was heated up anyways, So I got to get another bit. I've got several of them at the other place. Make sure that router bit's tight. I had one time cutting across like this, and I felt it. I heard it it didn't sound right. So I shut it off immediately, and it had cut this S-shaped saddle groove. And what happened was the router bit had gotten loose. Yeah, so make sure it's tight, make sure everything's good to go. Everything's snug. Now, I have my backing plate over here. I'll bring the camera over and I'll show you this. And this is how we're going to make this move. The Stu Mac deal has got a really good deal here. I'll bring the camera over in a minute and I'll show you how we're going to move this back 20 thousandths of an inch. So, we're going to cut right on the edge of the tape. We're going to eliminate those two little marks. And I think I'm going to do one more check here. I think, looking at this tape, I think I need to move that treble side forward just a tiny bit. I don't think my tape is right perfectly on that, and I'm afraid if I cut it, I'm going to have just a little half moon sitting out there that I don't want to see. So I'm going to move this forward just a hair. I've got a little room to do this without falling off the bridge. But yeah, I think that's okay. Right there, just tiny amount. And it'd be nice if you could bring this over here and see. You know, who says the tape's perfectly straight, right? There you go. I like that. I think that's going to do a good job, yeah. Yeah, that's going to cut it. As it comes across the hole, it's going to eliminate the hole, okay? So, check the base side again. Since I moved one angle, I could have moved, it will move the other angle a tiny bit. And I believe we've got enough to work with here. Yeah, that's going to go right through there. All right. Here we go. I'll put this on Do Not Disturb. Okay. Take this off. Then plug it in. Just you gotta be paranoid about this. If the switch was on and you plugged it in, your router will go berserk over the top of a 1938 D18, and that would not be good. I will try to remember to turn the volume down at this point. Here we go. Alright, gotta do it. Okay, set that out, vacuum it up, take a look at it. Now, hopefully I got the depth cut where I want, so I don't have to adjust the depth. We'll just adjust backwards, and hopefully I got that good. And got the base side really good. Base side looks great. And I think that looks okay. I wish the treble was just a tiny bit deeper, but I don't want to compromise the base side in order to get that. It's amazing how little saddle actually sticks out on a true vintage saddle. You're used to looking at modern ones and they stick out too far. Let me see if I have my 50s bridge. I think think I took my 50s bridge back. Yeah, I don't have it. Here it is. Here it is. So here's a 50s bridge, and look at how little is actually sticking out right there. But you can see the good close-up on this camera as opposed to the GoPro. And you can measure that, you know. I'm not sure if I can caliper it too well. Let me see. We can get close, you know. And it's not necessarily even. It's a little bit more on the treble side on this one. But we've got about 137. And this one's kind of worn out and the shoulder is soft. So it's a little hard to determine where that shoulder is. But let's see. Let's see what 137 looks like. And I'd say it's a little bit more, yeah, it's okay. So let's say 135, 137th of an inch. So I might as well just lock this in here and see how I'm doing, because I could lower my bit now if I wanted to. So let's double check this. I'll just bring the calipers over here. I mean, looks good to me. It's so close, you know. Let's see what this one looks like. Yeah, that one might be 5/1000 of an inch less. And like I said, I would really like for that treble to be just a little bit. But I already got this thing angled up so much. The wisher's away. I'm tempted to take that foam out of there and drop this side down a little bit without changing anything. But the problem is, I don't want to mess up my jig to do this. So I think we're going to call it good. Just looking. I really like the bass side. I like the bass side a lot. And the treble, I can disturb the tape because I've got that one cut. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good. Not good enough. Not perfect, but let's bring the camera over and we'll take a look at it and I'll show you. Okay, this is why I got this camera, for these close-ups like this. And here, that's what we're looking at there. You got a good light on it. That's what we're looking at right there. And that is just about perfect. But over here on the treble, it's just a little less. But it's not bad, you know. There's a good shot. That's got a good light on it. You know, that's not bad. And again, if you look at the 50s here, you can see there's a little less on the bass side than there is the treble side. At some point, you got to ask yourself, you know, did they really get that good back in 1930? Themselves. Yeah, you can make up this accuracy and everything, but was it really that good? Even so. I'm thinking if there's any way I can get that down just a tiny bit more. If it's even an issue. Let me measure it again. My eye says this is just a little bit different. Now I got the tape out of the way, I can do this a little bit better. Yeah, I'm getting about 95 thousandths over here and 115 on the bass side. So 20 thousandths of an inch difference. And even at 115, I could go a little bit deeper, because would we get 137? So I could go. Sure, I'd get this foam out of here. That would give it to me right there if I get that foam out. I don't think I can get another feeler gauge in there. I've already got so many feeler gauges on this side stacked that, what other options do I have? I think this clamp in the middle here pulls the jig down. So if I did this and released that and clamped it over there, or even better over here, yeah, I said I would pull that down when I release that. So I have it there and I have it there. I just got to make one cut. Famous last words, huh? So what we're going to do, move this over right there. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go to the, man, I wish it was a little deeper. Go to the back side right there. I'm not going to get it there. Clamp that. Okay, it's just going to move. It's held on pretty good on the back. That's pretty good. That's pretty stout. Going to check this again. It should run clean through here without any interference. Hitting immediately interference. Okay. Could be the depth of the slot though. Let's see what we look like over here. Oh, there it is, just going through. It had a little bit of dust in it. Okay, so that's going through. No interference. I've got it back in the same slot. Now, what happens if I drop this a little bit? I was hoping it would drop it on its own, but what happens if I drop it just a little bit here? Still going through. Keep going until we hit here. Okay, now I've hit the treble. That's good. And hopefully the bass will clear. It's not. Yeah, it is. Okay, the bass is clearing. And there it goes, starting to bind. Did you hear that? Okay. So I've got the bass side clearing, starting to bind on the treble. I'm going to make one pass. I'm going to see if I can get that treble side down a little bit. We're going to be taking the whole slot down. So it's going to be okay. Here we go. Everybody's still tight. Everybody's loose. Jig looks good. Yeah, I did a little bit of a trick there. when I was on the treble side, I pushed down just a little on the jig because it is a little bit of a flexy jig, you know. I pushed down just a little bit, and I got a pretty good bite, and man, that looks good. That looks good. Yeah, that looks good. It's incredible. I mean, it's a tiny amount. Let's see. Let's measure again. This is in the way. This clamp is in the way. It looks good. Yeah, I like it. I got it just. Not taking that clamp off. $136. Perfect. Perfect. Man, it is perfect. Whew. So that was worth it. That was worth bushing around with that a little bit. Now the angle is good, so my next cut should be good. So you know, looking at it visually, it's like, yeah, that's better. It matches. Okay, I'll bring the camera over. Let's take a look at it. Okay. See what you think. Oh, critics of the internet. Okay, here's this one. Get a light on it. The light's the problem here. There you go. And then over to the treble. Oh, that's good. See that light? That looks good. Just as perfect as I can do it. You let me know if you can do better. Okay, while we're over here, here's what's going to happen here. See this plate? This is what's so great about the StewMac jig, and this is where I got the idea of messing around with my drill press thing, and I said you need two blocks like this. So this is nothing but a backing block for this. So what you do is you loosen this up, and you can slide it back, and you can now measure this gap right here with feeler gauges, which are right here. So here's a 19. I'd like for it to be 20, but my 20s are up there being used. So I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to pin it. And then I'm going to tighten these screws like that, and then I'm going to take this out, and that should be a 20,007-inch gap. And I'm going to do this about 20 times, and then I'm going to loosen this, and I'm going to move this back, and unfortunately this clamp is holding this. So before I move this clamp, I need to come back over here and clamp this again so this jig does not move, because man, I do not want to get a wedge-shaped saddle slot in this thing. That would not be good. Now if something bad like that does happen, then what I would do is I would fill in the saddle slot, and I would cut it all over again. And I'm good enough at filling saddle slots so that I can do it invisibly. You'll never know it was there. It looked like a grain line. But before I move anything, I should go over here and I should clamp this. Make sure that jig isn't going to move, because I got to unclamp this clamp in order to move this back. But I'm going to measure this about 1,000 times and make sure that it's actually moving 20,000 of an inch, and nothing more, nothing less. So there's 19. It's actually 19. And there we go again. That's in. Dragging across. It's all nice there. It's a little tight in the middle. Crazy. 20,000 of an inch. It's hardly anything. Okay. 20,000 of an inch. Now I can loosen this. I can loosen these two screws, and I can move the whole thing back tiny ridiculous amount, so that we should end up with an 80 thousandths of an inch saddle slot. If it's a little wedge shape, it's going to be so minutely wedge shaped that it's going to be really hard for you or anybody else to tell. I've got to put this clamp back on here. And we will have to make sure that our contact points are the same so that I don't end up with a staggered saddle slot. If I do, I would just keep running the jig through there until I get it, right. Anytime you move the jig, there's always that possibility of something like that happening. I also could take file if I needed to, and I could smooth things out a little bit. When you work with vintage stuff, you're used to seeing saddle shots sometimes that are a little lopsided here and there. So, it is a thing sometimes. The other thing I should do is I should go ahead and measure this one here and make sure by some miracle it's not 82 thousandths of an inch. I can't get these in there very good. So, feeler gauges. So 84, let me think, so it should be about 60. So here's 60 thousandths of an inch right now. And 60 goes in there pretty good. Should be 61.25. Yeah. So we would like it to be 82. So here's a 76. And then a 4. So that's 80. So there's 80 thousandths of an inch worth of feeler gauges, and it should not pass. If it does, I will be happy. But it's not passing. So it looks like we've got about a 60 thousandths of an inch, 61, which is what we should have. We should have 61.25. And that 60 fits in there pretty snug. Pretty snug. Okay? We should be good to cut this back. Now, what I can do is I'll set this router on there, and I will look at how that router bit sits on the edge of each slot. So it should bisect that thing at the same thickness. In other words, we're moving back 20, that's 61. We should have about a third of the bit on the slot. So if I see half of the bit on the slot, then I know I've got one corner off too much. So it should be a pretty even amount of bit bisecting the slot. So let's see what we get here. And how's my light over here doing? This light's a little handier. Okay. I'd bring the camera over and show you, but this is just too much. So you're lucky you're getting a lot. I almost decided not to video this because I want to pay attention here. So I'm going to square that bit off. In other words, I'm going to make sure the router is flat, or the bit is flat. So I'm going to bring it up here. And, wow, it's hardly cutting anything. Sliding in real nice to the previous cut though. It's only going to take 20 thousandths of an inch, isn't it? So, not much. Yeah. No, it looks pretty decent. I feel like I could go back just a little bit more. Yeah, I think I'm going to move it about 3 thousandths of an inch more. Because this is 19. I needed to move it 21. And I feel like it's a little tight. It looks like it, like I said, it should be about 1/3 of that bit. It doesn't look like it's quite. It looks like it's like maybe a quarter of it. It just doesn't look like quite what it should be. So I need a 3/1000 or a 4/1000 of an inch feeler gauge. Here's a 2. I need one of these that can drop in there. That's a 15, 19. I've got a 3 around here somewhere. 13. I guess I'll use 2. Here's what's it. 3. Super. Kind of bent, but it'll work. Okay, so I am going to move it back 3/1000 of an inch, just a little. Just so that everybody's clamped on. I'm going to have to move that clamp again. Use this. Tell you what, you got to think about the details on these things, don't you? I mean, you don't have to, but 3/1000. A little tight in the middle. Nobody says this template is that accurate, you know. This piece of plastic might not be that 3/1000 of an inch. So I got 3/1000 there and I got 3/1000 there. So it's got to scoot it just a little. Clamp the front. Loosen. 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 Shoot, it didn't slide. Three. So it would have been so much easier if I just cut it 93/1000 of an inch. It would have been done an hour ago. I didn't feel it move, but let's see if it did. Alright, let's see how much of it bisects that hole now. That looks better. That looks like about 1/3 of the drill bit. Yeah. That does look a little bit better. And then how much over here? Looks good. It's bumping into it right there. So let's see something here. 61/1000, and then half of it would be 30, and that would be 93. So as long as it's not eating away half of the router bit, in other words, the router bit is 61.25 thick, and half of that would be a 30,000. So 30,000 on top of the 61 would give us 93. So if we end up with a 93/1000 of an inch slot, we should have just cut one. So we don't want half of that router bit. We want less than half of that router bit. As long as we're less than half and more than a little bit, we should come pretty close. And again, you know, we're reverse engineering this as to where John Arnold measured saddles and said, man, they're about 83/1000, 82. They're under 93/1000. And so we don't know what they actually were. We are reverse engineering this thing, trying to figure out. So as long as it's between 76 and 93, I think I'm going to be pretty happy. 61.25 is 60 thousandths. So I have, yeah, I've got half of that to work with. So let's just make sure we're not eating up half of this router bit. And get that light back behind it. With the telescopic eyes. I tell you, I believe I'm gonna put a little bit of impression in there. Yeah. I put a little bit of an impression in that bridge. Where is it? Right there. Get my glasses off. Gosh, it's tight. $23. So 61, 23. Should be about right, huh? Be 83, 84. 84 is still good, as long as it's under 93. Is there any way to test this? Not really, because as soon as I cut, I'm going to have to fill if it's wrong. I could cut in the middle of the bridge and do a test cut, just a test hole. But the problem with that is that you have to lower the router down onto the rails, and you can make an error that way. You got to get in the rails and push it. Like I said, if I blow it, I can fill it and recut it. You know, especially on the rear edge of this, I could put a glue in a thin strip of ebony in the back and recut just the back half of the slot, and you'd never notice. So it is possible to fix this, but I don't want to. You know, I want to get it right. Let's check this again. Trying to get a good shadow on it. I'm definitely going to cut some. I'm a little worried that maybe I shouldn't have adjusted it. So how do I move that plate forward? I leave this plate alone and loosen this plate, and I move it forward again 3/1000 I'm going to move it back to where I had it. This is good practice. I'm not too worried I can get it. You know, at worst, what I would do is I'd just loosen the whole thing up, and I would go back to where the thing was sliding through there, because it's a snug fit. And when you get that thing sliding through the groove that's already cut, you're back where you were. and then you can start all over again. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move that back 3/1000 of an inch. I think I'm just a little too close to half. It looks like I'm on this side of the half, but it's just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to loosen this. We're going to move that forward, and we're going to take our 3/1000 of an inch in here again. Here we go, 3/1000. I have 20 to work with, right? 361. Yeah, I think we'll be all right. I'll probably be all right the way I am right now, but we're going to scoot forward just a little. The good thing about this one is you got it, you know? Yeah. Good thing about moving it forwards is I know I moved it. I moved forward and I moved it back. When you're trying to move it back a certain amount, you got to move it. There's a backing plate, and if there's a piece of dust in there or something, you're not going to get it. Okay, now I'm going to check it again, even though this didn't move a bit. I'm going to go ahead and check it. And I can leave this clamp in and check this because we're not worried too much. The only thing we're worried about right now is bisecting the slot with the router bit. Whew, it's taking me what, 38 minutes just to get this set up. But yeah. But it's going to take 5 seconds to cut the thing. Yeah, I like that. I do like that. Let's put it back to here. I'm more comfortable with that. It definitely is sitting on the other side of that half line. Sitting on the other side of the 50-yard line, if you will. Okay? Put this one in. Loosen this. Make sure I'm hitting the edges correctly. Oh. I like it. Yeah, I like it. Okay. Here we go. Well, the slot looks beautiful. Ledges are really good, and slot looks great. So I want to see how he did. 76 thousandths. It looks good. '76 has got just a little bit of a wiggle. And I'll do it again. I'll move it one more time if I think I need to. So 76 plus 8 would be 84. Here's a 6 in here. That should be 82. Ah, almost. You know, if it's 80, I'm calling it. We're done. I've got slots that are 80 thousandths. So let's try 80. I gotta hold these together real tight too. 80. I like 80. Yeah, there it goes. There's 80. Okay, there's 80 thousandths right there. And so by the time you put that in there, and a little bit of age occurs and all that distortion and everything, we're going to call it good. It looks good. Looks nice and trim. The sides are beautiful. Okay. I'm good. I'm good with 80. You guys good with 80? It's definitely not worth trying to move it for 2,000ths of an inch. That's a human hair, you know. It's a human hair. And then 84. Yeah, 84 is, yeah. Oh, golly. Man, that is a ton of work. Let's take a look at it real close. Slot is beautiful. I'm really glad I took the time to rework the jig to get that. I'll show you the slot. And then we are done with this. The only thing left to do is to countersink the holes here on top. And this is a stack of feeler gauges that I had to use, and I had to leverage it up by 87 thousandths of an inch, 86 thousandths of an inch is what I had to raise that one side up to make it cut level, straight across and everything. It's just what had to be done. Yeah, that's good. That's pretty. Let's take a look. There's that side. The camera's really focusing good. That's why I wanted it. And then there's that side. Pretty good. And you can tell, if you've got a good eye, you can tell that it's a little thinner slot than a 93 thousandths of an inch. I can tell by looking at it. I can tell that it's a little bit slimmer than your standard. I can tell it's a little bit slimmer than your standard 3/32 of an inch slot. It looks trimmer. What that does for you sound-wise, the thinner saddle will give a little bit more brightness, and a thicker, wider saddle will give more bass. I used to have, back in the day, a D28 1935 special, and it was one of the early tributes, because it was nothing like a real one, you know. Early tribute. And someone had routed it for an undersaddle pickup, and it had 1/8 of an inch. So it had, you know, a fatter saddle, and that guitar had absolutely no cut, no bite, no nothing. And I actually showed it to John Arnold once, and he said, yeah, when you get a wider saddle, you lose all your trebles. So, okay, my battery's about to run out on the camera, so we're going to cut out of here. You watch this entire process, and it is painstaking and picky. This is why vintage guitars cost so much to work on. Well, how long have I been on this thing? 45 minutes. 45 minutes just to cut that. Normally I'd have that thing on there and, you know, zip through 93 seconds, I'm done. But we want this right, you know. See ya.